Last night, they kicked it off. The first Republican debate leading up to the 2024 presidential election. And I want to share with you what stood out to me. So just a reminder, welcome back. I'm Elliott Connie. I'm a licensed psychotherapist, and I want to share with you the psychological impact of some of the things going on in the world and how a therapist would respond to really popular stories. And as a therapist, I have a response to what I saw last night. So I'm going to give you the highlights for me, and as a therapist, what I saw and what stood out to me. The first thing I saw was none of them mentioned mental health as a topic to run their presidential platform on. Obviously, I'm biased. I'm a psychotherapist, so I think mental health is really important. But remember, we're coming out of a pandemic. We're going through a really difficult economic time. People's mental health is suffering. I know that because of the people contacting me, emailing me, and people wanting to talk in session about the stresses they're going through. We've all gone through a global collective trauma, and I find it odd that anybody running for president, Republican or Democrat, wouldn't have mental health as a primary topic leading their presidential candidacy. And it wasn't mentioned last night, and certainly isn't the center point of anybody's running. So that's the first thing that stood out to me. I admit and acknowledge I have a bias as a psychotherapist, but I was hoping that someone would talk about mental health and how important mental health is. And by the way, I actually think, not that I'm a political advisor, but I actually think that would be very popular. For the first time in human history, the New Year's resolution this year wasn't about weight loss or making more money or that. It was addressing mental health. So it's obviously something that people have on their mind. It just wasn't being centered on anybody's candidacy, at least not as evidenced by the first debate or anything else I've heard coming out of these presidential campaigns. The second thing that stood out to me is the absence of the leading candidate. The leading candidate in the Republican Party is Donald Trump, who was not on that stage. So you could see everybody like attacking one another, trying to gain footing in the presidential election. And this is common very often. Like, think about a family and with like a mom, dad, and 3 kids. When the mom and dad are away and they leave the 3 kids, like there would be a bickering amongst them to see who is in charge.
I've had enough already tonight of a guy who sounds like ChatGPT standing up here.
And you could see that dynamic playing itself out, or at least I could see that dynamic playing itself out on the stage last night, which I thought was interesting because you can see the patterns of human behavior and human communication taking place. Donald Trump being the leader in this campaign, in this early stages of this presidential election cycle for Republicans, not being present, you see like the sibling rivalry, if you will, to see who would become someone who could become the leader when Donald Trump is not present. And then the third thing I found really interesting was former Vice President Mike Pence and the positioning that he has in this field. Mike Pence has been a lifelong politician. He's been a senator, he's been a vice president, he's been a governor, I believe, of Indiana, but he's gonna have a very, very difficult time overcoming perception. Perception is a psychological construct that we have that's related to branding. Like, in a way, there's a separation between what's perceived and what is real. If I told you that a Rolex watch isn't made with high quality material, like the perception is that a Rolex watch is the very high standard of watches. So if I said, no, I'm actually an expert on watches, I dissected, I broke down a Rolex watch, and the material they used to make it is actually not high quality, you'd have a very hard time believing me because it's so different than the perception. Well, there's a perception about Mike Pence that he's gonna have a very difficult time overcoming. And the perception is that Mike Pence was a traitor on January 6th of 2020 and could have stopped the election from going to Joe Biden. So now it doesn't seem to matter what he says. He was booed consistently last night, and people's response is that Mike Pence is not a viable candidate because he was a traitor to Donald Trump and a traitor to the Republican Party, and he could have stopped the election from going to Joe Biden by not certifying the election on the day, and didn't. So as I watched that, I realized the truth doesn't seem to matter because what is perceived becomes real. And that is a very common thing in our psychology. It happens all of the time that we actually respond to perception more consistently than we respond to reality. And Mike Pence has a very challenging issue ahead of him. How does he overcome perception based upon the reality, because the reality is he didn't have the constitutional authority to do that. But the perception is that he did and then didn't act. So people are angry with him because he could have done something to prevent the election from going to Joe Biden, and he didn't. So now Republican voters have a hard time trusting him and believing in him, and they literally boo him when he speaks because of perception. And it was interesting to watch that. Like, being a psychotherapist, I know the way perception works, and I know how people use perception to get what they want or not. Brands do it all the time, politicians do it. Like, it's just a thing that's very, very common, and you could see it taking place in the debate last night. So I wonder what your thoughts were. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts were on the debate. Let me know what you think of some of the things I shared in this video. Thank you for being here. Please, please, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Hit subscribe and hit the bell so you get notified every time we post a video, which is every single day, Monday through Friday. And also, don't forget to follow me on social media at Elliott Speaks on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Threads. Thanks so much. I'll see you in the next video.